Hello, my name is Agnes Bushell, and I am the author of Monkey, a Russian novel. This novel is set in the middle of the 19th century in Russia, and the section I'm going to read to you takes place during a seance that's being conducted by a psychic by the name of Madame Blavatsky. They all seem so restless, though, my fellow seekers, restless, nervous, twitchy. The room seemed restless too. The house was settling and making the sorts of noises old buildings make at night. Then closer to the table, something started rattling, and there was a sense of things shuffling around, shifting. At the same time, Elena Petrovna began speaking in a foreign language I could not identify. The charade was getting on my nerves. Suddenly, she seemed to grow even larger, and as she spoke, her voice became sing-song and very low. I saw nothing, of course, until I did. It was a figure, a bent old man with a long beard, quite visible, despite the dimness and the smoke. Everyone else saw it, too. The shock of the apparition jolted the table like a lightning strike. Spaniard, sitting beside me, squeezed my hand so tight I thought he would break it. "Do you have a message, spirit?" Blavatsky called out in her husky voice. "Can you speak?" There was a groaning sound, like the sound one hears walking down an old staircase in the night, a groaning, suffering sound. Then a bit of chaos ensued. Chairs were pushed back, a glass was upset, the vision vanished. Fat man sat mopping his face with a handkerchief. Prince Ivan called for vodka. It seemed the session was ending, and I felt a slight disappointment, as though I had paid for an opera and heard only the first aria. But Blavatsky knocked on the tabletop and commanded us not to break the circle, but to stay in our places. She extended her arms over the table, the black material of her long sleeves hanging over the space like a shroud, and closed her eyes. Several moments passed. Then she cried out ominously, "He is coming." And then more ominously still, "He is here." At the word "here," every light in the room blinked. How else to describe it? The few candles, the lamp behind the screen, all were extinguished and relit in a moment. It was quite a trick, that moment of blackness, of utter darkness, the length of a heartbeat. Yet it had occurred. Again, we looked at each other in amazement and confusion, but we had no time at all to recover ourselves or to end the charade, which I still believed it was. More was to come, I was sure, and I steeled myself for more shenanigans, feeling almost shamed and misused, embarrassed for Seraphima, angry at being made to be part of such a farce. Such was my state of mind when I looked across the table, past Blavatsky's formidable girth, to the space just behind her, the only spot in the room clearly illuminated by the single lamp behind the screen. And in that almost radiant place, uncanny and impossible as it was, a man's figure appeared. He seemed as real as any of the men sitting in the room with me. He seemed, in fact, somehow more real than they. He had a look about him that was familiar, and as I kept my eyes fixed on him, he became more familiar still. But it was hard to fix my eyes. The room shifted like everything else, for in that moment everything in the world seemed to be in flux, and yet even so he became more and more clear, until, unless I doubted the evidence of my own eyes, I was looking at Nikolai Barakov. I tried to speak, but my mouth was so dry I could not move my tongue. I could not move my limbs. The only part of me that could still move was my heart, which was beating so hard I felt my chest was about to burst. Stupidly, I tried to stand. Everything in the room went black.